Poison Pen. And I'm really delighted to have Jeffery Deaver and Alex Finlay with us this evening. They're going to be talking about their new books. And today is actually a special day. Mr. Deaver is celebrating a birthday. He's celebrating his 55th. And we're going to have a birthday cake after the program and drinks and things as well. But please help me welcome Jeff Deaver and Alex Finlay.
Well, first of all, thank you. And it's 55 because I only go by binary numbers. So thank you, Patrick. What I thought we'd do tonight is, unfortunately, you've got two lawyers up here who are used to cross-examining people. Alex does much more litigation, and at a very high level, I will say, than I ever did. But I only say that because we're going to give a bit of a presentation, and then we really enjoy pointing people out and demanding that you answer our questions, and we can tell whether you tell the truth or not. So, but maybe what we'll do is kind of jump in and talk about each of our books, and maybe how we come up with our ideas, how we write them, some of the techniques, and anything else that comes to mind. So, you want to jump in and
yeah. Well,
chat?
thanks for everyone for. Can you hear me? I can't hear myself. Thanks for everyone for coming on a Tuesday night on beautiful weather. I will say, with the questions, the most flattering question asked to me gets a chance to win a copy of my last book. So I get to judge how flattering it is, and the winner. So, what was that you asked, Jeff? What are we here to talk about? I'm here to talk about Parents Weekend. But first, I want to congratulate Jeff on South of Nowhere. It is just like everything Jeff does is just pure gold. You'll be lucky to read it. We'll talk a little bit more about, Jeff doesn't know that I'm going to have a little bit of fanboy stuff going on tonight with Jeff because he's been a big inspiration to me over the years. Parents Weekend, it's the tagline on the cover is, they grow up so fast and then they're gone. And it's a story about anyone who's ever had children. Freshman year, there's something called Parents Weekend or Family Weekend, and the story's at a small Northern California college, and it's Parents Weekend, and the dorms have split up the families into these small groups of 5 families to go out to have dinner, and the parents go and they're having cocktails, having a nice time, and their 5 kids never show up, and at first, everyone thinks, oh, they're just kids being kids. They got sidetracked by a party. They're being irresponsible. But as the hours go by and then a day goes by and not so much of a text from the kids, panic ensues. And it becomes kind of a social media thing. And the FBI comes to help. And it's the story about, what happened. How did 5 kids just disappear? And does it have something to do with the secrets of their parents, or is there a threat from the friend group from within?
And let me just say, I too have read. Well, I listened to the book. I'm a big audio person. I read a lot of books. My eyes are not the greatest, so I do listen to a lot of books. And so I listened to Alex's latest, and one of the things when I teach my course in writing, there are 2 very important elements. One is the plot, and I'm a plot-driven author, and the plot on Alex's book is very intricate and just wonderful intercutting of the scenes and the stories of the families and the stories of the children, and it's masterfully done. And then also I have to draw attention to Isabella Maldonado, who's here, and she and I write books together, and we have come up with this theory of that every chapter has to end with a springboard that launches you into the next chapter. And damn it, I'm sorry, Alex, because I'm getting to the, it's kind of time to get my lunch on the airplane or whatever, and I have to take the earplug out because something has just happened, and I'm not going to give anything away, that launches us into the next chapter, or sometimes, damn it, the chapter beyond that. So I had to wait a bit, but that's one element, the plot. But also, you can have the best plot in the world, but if you don't have characters you care about, it's useless. And you care about all of the kids and the parents. There's good sides and bad sides to everybody involved, and administrators as well. So it was basically a one-sitting listen. I can't say read, but a one-sitting listen. And it's that combination of the two that is what fiction. I was going to say crime fiction, but frankly, all fiction should be about. South of Nowhere is my latest Colter Shaw book. Colter Shaw, the character whom I introduced in the Never Game, and that is the basis for the TV show Tracker, which you may have heard of, CBS prime time about I think 8 or 9 o'clock. I'm not sure how these time zone things work. We're in Arizona. I have no clue where we are now. It's probably Greenland time. Or I'm not gonna try to guess. But anyway, it involves Colter Shaw in a Northern California town, very much like Alex's book, although I'm a little further north. And a levee is about to collapse, and a terrible flood, rains, snow melt, and Colter Shaw has to rescue a family that's fallen into their SUV has fallen into a river. He, being an ace survivalist, will he be able to find them in time? And I'm a suspense writer, so I end it there. So if you care about the family and the two little kids in the back of the car, damn it, buy the book, show your support. So there you have the premise of both of our books. And I thought what we might do is maybe talk about how we maybe come up with our ideas and how we sit down. Alex, I have infinite respect for this. He has a full-time job as a D.C. attorney at a very prestigious firm. I worked for a Wall Street firm when I was getting started, and I know how difficult that is. But he persevered. I persevered a long time ago. But why don't you talk a little bit about how you construct the books and how you juggle the many difficult elements of your, a life and the writing world?
Yeah, my wife hates that question because she says, you have no friends or hobbies. What else are you going to do, So, as far as how I construct the books, I steal a lot from my family. My son goes to the college I base this book off. That's how much I steal from my family. But where ideas come from, every book's a little different. And this one was after a parents' weekend I went to. And I have 3 children, all are done with college. One's still in college. But my oldest, he went to NYU, and we went to a parents' weekend on this rainy, awful kind of October day, and we were supposed to meet for breakfast with all the kids from the dorms and my son. And of course, we're standing outside with my younger children. It's pouring rain on us. We can't get in the dorm, and he's nowhere to be found. And so we're out there for about an hour, and my temperature is getting a little rising as this is happening, as you can imagine. And sure enough, he and his friends are strolling down the street because they've been out all night, and you could see the recognition on all their faces that they remembered this. So I didn't really think of a story at that time, but and then so 5 years later, I go to a parents' weekend in Northern California for my youngest son, and the setting was just so much more beautiful. The weather was great, and for some reason, those two things just collided. This kind of really idyllic setting, but with the idea that the kids, didn't show up, and what one kid not showing up, you can see, but 5, and from there, I have to ask myself, well, why didn't 5 show up? And that's how you build a story. How about you on South of Nowhere?
Yeah, when I look for an idea for a book, I keep in mind Mickey Spillane's comment that people don't read books to get to the middle. And it's our job as authors to grab you by the lapels in the opening. It used to be the opening chapter. Now it's really like the first paragraph, and I'm sure like Isabella, Alex, and myself, we get copies of books to blurb, the advanced copies, and I get a lot of those, and I don't know about you guys, but I used to give it like 50 or 60 pages, and now it's like, I'm sorry, if I'm not engaged in the first 5 pages, in the first 3 pages, it doesn't really work for me. Not to say that that's not a good book. They're very slow, character-driven books that are beautiful, lyrical writing. It's just not what I do or what I'm interested in. So I thought, well, let's see, Colter Shaw, he's a survivalist. I've set that up in the first 4 books. what's he, what kind of assignment is he going to have now? And I thought, um, gee, if I were to push a car into a river, how long could somebody survive? And it's not like I was pissed at anybody in particular, but I thought, does it like, you'd be amazed at how long you can actually survive in a car. There's, you know, how oxygen changes. You know, you never suffocate from lack of oxygen. That doesn't happen. There's always oxygen in there, but it's the oxygen to carbon dioxide ratio that will kill you, and it kills you real unpleasantly, just for the record. So anyway, these ideas kind of went through my mind, and then it escalated. Like you, I'm sure, Else, you had certain ideas, and then as you were writing the book, it came along more slowly. Now I guess we have to bring up a topic here that I know you're not going to want to hear. I don't mean you, I mean you. Outlining. Now, I'm an inveterate outliner, and I planned out South of Nowhere for months before I wrote a single word of the the prose. The outline was about 100 pages long because I had, excuse me, I had many, I have subplots in it about the people who live in the town. Coulter's sister shows up. She's a disaster response person. She's got a subplot. There are other people who have subplots. So it's quite complicated. It takes place over about 2 days, as your book does, maybe about a week, a little longer than that, but still very intricately driven. So that's how the idea came to me. And then I sat down and started my outline. And do you how much do you plan ahead of time?
Yeah, I don't outline much. I should, because it's much more efficient and you waste a lot of time. But I basically, I tried outlining once and I wrote a lengthy outline, and then I felt, when I went to go write the book, I felt like it was like a job. I was like, oh, I got to write chapter 7 tonight, and so it didn't work for me. But I wish it did, because I do know from my law practice, I'll outline a brief before I write it. Often though, I think from my law practice and writing a lot of briefs, what you do as a lawyer and as an appellate lawyer is you're really telling a story. You're telling your client's story, and you get this mass of material. If there's been a trial, it can be a 3-year trial. You could get thousands of pages, and your job is to take the little pieces and put it into a story. And so I think that was good training ground for writing thrillers, because it just that muscle was used a lot, just taking little pieces of a mass and trying to put it in some logical order and keep track of everything. And so I think that's helped me with writing we both write multi-perspective, or South of Nowhere's multi-perspective. So I don't think I need the outline as much as I might if I hadn't had that legal training. Does your legal training come into play at all, or has it?
Yeah, it certainly does. And in my case too, I did very little litigation. I had some trials, but mostly I was a corporate attorney. And people say, "Well, Jeff, but wait a minute, you write criminal books and you were an attorney. Didn't you do criminal law?" My response is, I represented large multinational banks. So draw your own conclusions about that. But yes, I did. You have to plan out a business deal the same way you plan out litigation. Now, litigation I enjoyed. I don't really think quickly. And if you've ever seen any of my presentations, which I love to do, I read them. I have to say I'm a good writer. I've written a lot of stuff over the years, but I don't think spontaneously, as I'm sure Alex does and litigators do. Their minds work like that. So it was very important for me to get every element of the business deal done, and that included the documents, but also the meetings with the clients and things, and that kind of taught me the structure of everything. And then I just kind of fell into that process. I wrote a couple books without outlining, and then I would get like halfway through, and then an idea would occur to me, and I have to go back and rewrite a lot of work. And I'm very lazy. I mean, writing is hard work. It's not. I don't find it a lot of fun. And so I did I did this concept of idea. Okay, I use Post-it notes first for an outline, and if the book doesn't work, then I throw out the Post-it notes. It's taken a week of my time. And but if I write the book, I have to go back and revise, and it just, you hit the key word. It's really efficient for me. But when I teach my class, I tell students, whatever works. There are pantsers, as in seat of the pants, and plotters, and whatever works for you works.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about, I always say I don't like writing. I like having written. I like having the words on the page and having something to work with. I have a question for you. Given your, how many novels do you keep track? How many novels?
This is 52 novels. Yeah, and someday I'm going to get it right.
I get confused with I have 6 books, and I'll go to book talk. Sometimes I'll talk about the wrong character from the wrong book. I don't know how 52. Do you still remember them all, or?
No. I hope you like my character Alex Cross. He's done. I'll take whatever credit I can get. No, I'm sorry. At this age, 55, I kind of focus on the book at hand, and that's 2 books at hand. I'm sorry. I have to slip this in. Isabel and I co-write, and we have Fatal Intrusion out now, and coming out on September 9th is the sequel. The Grave Artist, and I'm going to have that guy stand up right there. Okay, that's good. I just focus for the moment on the book I'm working on, but you get this question a lot. What's your favorite book? And you know the answer, right? Right away, the answer is the next one, right? Because, curiously, we have I think met only briefly before this, but we have very parallel approaches to writing. And Alex was saying that his final edit is to listen to the book word for word, right? That's my final edit too. I use Word with Word 365. That's the subscription service. There's a you can pick your own voice. Pick a voice you like, a man, a woman, and then you listen to it word for word, and you would be amazed at how many errors you find. After, and probably like with your appellate briefs, you read that, you read an appellate brief 20 times, and a proofreader reads it 20 times, and there's still stuff you find. Listening to it is the best advice I could give. Whether you do an email or writing a letter to your kids, or doing a report of some kind, listening is very it's very important to do.
Yeah, I think I read aloud too. I think that's the advice I gave my children when they're writing papers. That you catch something just reading it yourself. Technology now, I use Speechify, which is basically I can have Gwyneth Paltrow read my book to me, which is kind of AI version. But I do catch a lot of issues that way, and so it was fun to hear Jeff does the same.
He has to have ads for Goop in his. But we do have sort of the same approach, but the whole process is quite amazing, and it's very subjective. Whatever it takes to get words down on the page and tell a story, that's the most important thing. And one thing I found with listening, reading novels are very new in the course of civilization. Entertainment was oral. The plays, poetry, Shakespeare. Shakespeare was self-published. Nobody read the plays. The only way to get the stories was to go to the Globe or one of the other theaters and listen to them. And I like the way words go together. And I would suspect if you're doing, of course, your writing is very lyrical, and some of the passages, especially in certain characters' points of view. And one of the things I really enjoyed was that your tone, your voice changes when you get in somebody else's point of view. And some are quite emotional, and some are really, people can be nasty shits, let's face it. And, that comes out in the dialogue and in the way you describe the characters, and listening to the words. It's kind of like you're in a play and listening to the characters talk, don't you think?
Well, first of all, did everyone get that down so I could put it on my next book jacket? Any of those nice things, Jeffery Deaver comment. I think, you're a musician, right? Yeah. So do you think that plays any role in your writing?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the problem with being a musician is I was a singer-songwriter, and I wanted that to be my career. But there are 2 aspects to that. A job description, singing and songwriting. Songwriting is fine. In fact, I've written an album of country western songs that you can listen to on YouTube or Spotify or wherever. But the singing part, not so much. And I was very disillusioned because did you do music at all? Oh, okay. All right. See, he's probably a real musician, because people like I heard this story about Elvis Presley, and it's rockabilly kind of stuff. But Elvis Presley would go into the studio, and he'd look at the lead sheet, and the lead sheet is just it's like a single sheet of the notes, not a huge score, and then the lyrics, and he'd look at it and say, okay, fine, and he'd memorize it, and he'd sing every note, and then he'd say, let's modulate this and go up a quarter tone or something, and he could. Now that's musicianship, and I couldn't do that, and also he hit the notes. there's that. So what's your musical background?
Well, I was, you wouldn't know from the bald head, but I was in an '80s hair metal band, if you can believe this. And so we didn't really care about hitting the note or having the musicianship. But no, I thought that's what I wanted to do with my life, and I
Me too. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that at some point, I think when I was, I played during high school and college, and at some point I just realized, wow, you're just not that good. You're never gonna, you're not gonna make it doing this. And I literally had this epiphany at a nightclub we played at, in the backstage area. I just realized we're just not that good. Monday went and got my hair cut, applied to law school. But I do think music has played a role, because I needed a creative outlet, and I'll say, like, this is the fanboy part about. I read The Bone Collector, and it was both inspiring but also depressing, because it was so good. I knew I could never achieve that. But it was really, it started when my youngest son was born. I started dabbling with writing, and he'd be up late, and he'd be on my lap. I have these great memories of writing my first book I wrote, which didn't sell. With him, but it was really, I don't know if you remember this book, Jeff, but it was called The Devil's Teardrop. Yeah. And
Parker Kincaid, the handwriting expert, FBI handwriting expert. Yeah.
And that was, a friend's spouse worked at a bookstore, and she had an advanced copy and gave it to me, and I read it, and I said, I'm going to give this a go, and so it's, for me to be here with you, this is really just a real honor.
Thanks a lot to me. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, thinking of my when I made the decision that music was not going to be in my future, I was I was in Chicago. I did not do heavy metal. I was a Dylan, Paul Simon, lyric oriented writing. That was what my thing was. And so I'm in the green room, and I was in Chicago, and I can't remember who it was. The green room's where before you go on stage, and I was kind of just looking over my own lead sheets and my own stuff, and then the headliner was there, and it wasn't John Prine, but it was somebody like that, like really good, like a heavy duty folk musician, and he's looking over my shoulder, and he says, and I'm kind of like, this is cool. He's looking at my stuff, and he says, "Oh, okay. What's that? What's that thing there?" And I'm looking down. He said, "That's my song." He said, No, I mean that thing, that little thing there." He said, "It's a semicolon." And he said, "Well, what's that?" And so I explained, it's a mark of punctuation, separating two independent but thematically conjoined sentences. And he said, "And you put them things in your songs." And it was like, I'm out of here. I did go out on stage, and I said, this will be my last performance. So we had similar,
a little more glamorous than mine. Mine, I imagine.
Similar experiences. So, why? I'm curious, why crime writing? Did you ever do any criminal pro bono work or anything like that?
I've had criminal. I mean, mostly an appellate lawyer, which is kind of a nerd who writes, sits in an office and writes, which is a lot what I do with my writing novels too. But I've had a lot of, as an appellate lawyer, you're a generalist. You basically whatever the case is. So I've had death penalty cases in the Supreme Court. I've had criminal cases in the Supreme Court. But I usually, when a case gets to the appellate level, it's often just like one or two issues. So I become a real expert in like one thing, and I delve into it and know everything about it. And then when the case is over, I just kind of dump it from my mind and never think about it again. But I have found the law practice, writing crime fiction, is helpful. I don't know if you have, in that I can research things myself. I'll have access to people who can help me with things I don't know or I don't have experience with. And I tend to have a lawyer character here or there because I'm lazy, and it's easy to put one in. But yeah, so has law practice helped you or being a lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, I tend not to write legal thrillers a la Grisham because the law moves slowly. If you're doing an appellate case, you might appear before the appellate court or the Supreme Court years after the trial court, and it will have been through various permutations. There's motion practice, and then finally things get looked at, and then there'll be a resolution. And also the idea of the surprise witness doesn't happen. It just doesn't. It's the hidden clue. Oh my gosh, we finally found this. That doesn't happen. Everything's kind of figured out ahead of time, and that isn't kind of like what I do. I mean, I write 24, the TV show 24. It's got to move quickly, and law doesn't quite work for that. I did write a book a few years ago called Mistress of Justice, and it took place in a Wall Street law firm, and that was kind of like sex among the partners. That was good. Well, I'm not saying that was good. I'm saying there's a lot of, intrigue and shenanigans going on, but there really wasn't a case that centered, again, like the way Grisham would write one. But I definitely, was glad that it helped. And if I may jump over to my co-writer here for just a moment, Isabella is a former law enforcement officer, and when we wrote the book together, it was very helpful for her to bring that credibility, the veracity to the story, because as an outsider, even though I actually did some criminal pro bono work, there's so much. It changes a lot. Title 18 is the U.S. Federal Criminal Code. It changes, and you've got to get it right, because how have you ever gotten a letter like this, Alex? Email. It would be like, Dear Mr. Deaver, enjoyed your latest book immensely. The plot was wonderful. The characters were good. However, on page 37, I couldn't help but notice that you had a Pentium 447 chip in this computer, and that was not introduced until the year afterwards. And if I get a letter like that, it's my fault. Nobody put a gun to my head and said you have to put in the name of the chip. I did it for a little credibility, but I know my reaction is to say it was a typo. Get a life. But I actually, and this has happened. I actually send a letter of apology because I've made that. I put a speed bump in that reader's enjoyment of the story, and you can't do that. This is written, and I can tell you went through I don't know how many times you rewrote this. Hemingway said there are no great writers; there are only great rewriters. But everything comes together. You may have had, if I had written that book, I would have had digression about like the university is portrayed quite realistically, and there was so much about like academic politics that I would have been tempted to put in there, but that didn't interfere with the story at all. So did you cut down a lot? Was it longer when you started it?
Well, I'll go back to your getting reader email piece, because I get so many that in the back of this book, I have David Ellis is a great writer. I don't know if you've read him, but we're buddies. And so in the back, in the acknowledgments of this book, I say, for any complaints about Parents Weekend, please send them care of David Ellis at
I'll have to
his
remember
website.
that.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I get a few. My favorite being I got a one-page email. Started the way you said, loved the book, did this, but he basically said, the word cement is the most misused word in the English language, and you misused it throughout your book. And apparently cement is the mixture stuff, and concrete is the thing you're supposed to say. I use cement.
Let me write this down, because I think I've got to.
And I sent an apology. To your point, you don't want to take somebody out of the story, and we try our best, but inevitably we're going to make mistakes. But this stuck with me because I just kept thinking, who is this guy? What's his background? That cement, this really got to him. Is he like a cement from a cement magnet family? Like his family, is he a kind of persnickety English professor in some New English college? So I've more been just thinking about this guy. So I have to kind of track him down one day, and see what it just stayed with me. And I forgot your question. Is my
You can look at me and say, you just answered
Research. I'm a terrible researcher, which is why I get the emails. I do it. I do everything kind of totally inefficiently, the opposite of what Jeff does. When I'm writing the book, if I get to a point where there's like an FBI procedure I don't know, or a medical thing, I just totally make it up. And I just think, well, what would the FBI probably do here? And so I go through and I write the whole book, and then it's like 2 weeks before my deadline, and then I start thinking about those emails, and so I start making phone calls or tracking down people to try and get some level of accuracy. And I defend it is completely inefficient, but I know myself really well. If I did like in-depth research and I went like 2 weeks and I learned about some technology, there would be like 15 pages in the book because I'd want to show off all this work I did. I couldn't just leave it there. So my way allows me to just try and find that one thing that you hope captures what you're trying to convey, or give that one little piece of authenticity. And so that's what I tell myself to get through the day. But I will get emails on this book, I guarantee you. So.
Yeah, and remember, you get that FBI stuff. They have guns. Just remember that. Yeah.
I never get a gun. I always just say a gun. I never describe any kind. If you get a gun wrong, you're gonna get emails.
The two things that are most important as far as details go, and you're going to hear about, are weapons, and guns mostly, and then computers. And I wrote a book called The Blue Nowhere a few years ago, which was a computer hacking book. And it was kind of before. I do like to think I'm a little prescient. Like my book, The Broken Window, was about the worst, most insidious kind of data mining before. It was like 15 years ago, before AI ever came about. And I kind of positioned that. But The Blue Nowhere was about hackers, evil hackers, written in like 1995, where he had to use a dial-up on AOL to hack. that weird sound. But you got to get it right, and because then it becomes a speed bump. But anyway, I thought to be clever, I kind of joked about the binary numbers before. The chapters were in binary. So chapter 1 was 00001, and then 00011 was chapter 2, and so I get 37. Now this wasn't my fault. I got it right, but my British publisher accidentally, because they don't recognize this craziness, they moved chapter 37 to chapter 38 and chapter 38 to chapter 37. Oh, the emails I got about that. Now, I'm sorry. Who knows binary code enough to say this is wrong? And yet I did, and maybe I should have checked it. I don't know. But, it's funny. We have a wonderful relationship with readers. And 50 books, 110 short stories or whatever. I'm not kidding. I wake up every morning thinking, oh, my God, am I going to screw up now? Am I going to have a plot that's too complicated, not complicated enough? Will this phrase be a little too smarmy? Will it be, a little too blunt? Do I use bad words? Because things change. Talking to my 19-year-old in college, she says words, and her friends use words that I didn't use when I was 19 years old. But that's, kind of the language of the time now, I guess. And so I just think, well, I'm going to try to get it right, and you aim for the best. But we get to make up stuff for a living, and my general line is, I don't work in Washington D.C., but you do, so I can't say that for you. So
the fact you're still tortured over this is the most depressing thing I've ever heard. Given that it never ends, is what you're saying.
Lawrence Kasdan, wrote The Big Chill and a number of things, director and writer. He said, what? Somebody asked him, "What's it like being a writer?" He said, "Oh, what's it like being a writer? It's like having homework every day for the rest of your life." But then again, Alex, here we come, and people look at us, and we can tell we've made them happy, and they've smiled, and that's really what it's all about. So shall we take a few questions from you folks? Now, remember, 2 attorneys up here, and we're ready to call on you. So, yes, please.
What did your clients think about your books?
I didn't hear the last part. What did my clients? That's a good question. The clients have been pretty you know, surprisingly interested and find it fun. You know, I was worried about that because the books, you know, I'm killing people, and you know, you never know what people are going to think of you when after they read your books. But overall, clients have been pretty nice about it, and you know, they buy the books, or I'll come to their companies and you know, do little presentations. But they've been good. I did write legal thrillers under my Alex Finlay is a pen name. I wrote legal thrillers under my real name, and you know, they were more closer to home. They were set in the D.C. legal community. In one book, I killed the entire 8 of the 9 justices of the Supreme Court on the first page. And there, I thought, are they going to put my picture up at the building when I go in? So I worried a little more. The good thing about the being Alex Finlay now is there is a distance, and I don't write as much. You know, don't really do legal thrillers anymore.
Yeah, the question was, did I have any input on who played Coulter Shaw in the series? It was between Justin Hartley and me. And for some reason, CBS, Ken Olin, Disney, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, they said no to me. So I'm joking, of course. And the answer is I really did not, because Justin is a producer in the show, and I've known Ken Olin for a long time. We've been trying to put together something for years. He optioned my book Edge. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but he tried to do that. That didn't work out. And then he he and Justin, who was just coming off of This Is Us, had read the Never Game, and they liked it, and they thought this character was good. And Justin kind of fits that loner character, you know, a good-looking, quiet guy. And he was inspired by, and I you know, I say this and I kind of have to explain it to some people, given that I'm 55, inspired by the character Shane, Alan Ladd Jr., from the movie many years ago. Or you could extrapolate that into Dirty Harry, you know, Clint Eastwood now, or Clint Eastwood in The Man with No Name, the Sergio Leone movies. I like the hero who comes to town, the solitary character, saves the day and then rides off into the sunset. And so Coulter was really, Coulter and Justin kind of meshed. Thank you. Yes, let's get one there, and then we'll get you.
I've seen your video. You did a review, right? Right? Yeah, yeah. Okay. The question is, who would play Agent Keller and McCrae? You know, I try not to think of the actors who would play them, because once I do that, then the next book I write with them, I'll be thinking, oh, this is Charlize Theron. Everything's, you know, is a thing. So I never really, you know, and do you, you know, when they're adapting you've had so many things adapted. Are you surprised, or do you tell them that this character is like a Brad Pitt type, or how does that work?
Well, interesting you mentioned that. I have had some things made, and I should say I'm not involved at all. I have no interest in being involved. I love movies, love TV shows, been as influenced by them as I have by books. But it's apples and oranges. I get to sit in a dark room for 10 hours a day and make stuff up. But a movie or TV show, that's a project by committee, and I don't play well with others. Aside from this, I will add quickly, and but
we got to ask Isabella if that's true.
But interesting that subject comes up, because we have, and I hope I'm not embarrassing you, Mike, but Isabella's husband is an expert at coming up with an actor who we can kind of psychologically model the character on. And it has nothing to do with necessarily casting that person. I mean, we hope things get made. But if you keep that in the back of your mind, it's extremely helpful, because you not only get the physical characteristics, but you get mannerisms, maybe some dialogue and so forth. So, you know, it's a world where there's an entertainment, how do I say, a whole gestalt. It's not just reading. It's not just streaming TV. It's not just feature films. It's everything. and we kind of live in this world of storytelling. It's never been better. More venues. I turn on Netflix. Just want to, I'm talking to Madeline and my partner, and okay, what do we watch? This is all new. The whole page is new stuff. And what is this? I don't know. It's a Danish detective show, 5 stars, and then but 20 seasons of 8 episodes. I don't want to make that commitment. But then I digress. But there's a lot of other stuff. But in answer to your question, yeah, we picture the characters, and that's very helpful.
Oh, and by the way, that was a very flattering question. You win the book. I should have strung it out a little longer, but it didn't look like there was going to be a lot of flattering questions coming. So
Alex, this is the best book I've ever read. And if you want to use that quote, I get the book. Oh yeah, let me get you.
Hi, this is for Alex. I am trying to win the book, by the way. I'm just kidding. No. I was able to read an advance copy of Parents' Weekend, and I read it on the tail of several underwhelming thrillers that I was really excited to read, and so I went into it just with an open mind, blank slate. That's what I try to do when I review a book. And I have to say, the plot was very good, but many times when you read a thriller, it's more plot-driven and character-driven. And what impressed me so much with this book is I felt I knew all the characters, all their parents. You develop those characters so well in just a page or two, and I think it was really smart how you organized the book kind of so you do get to know those characters really well, separated by the different chapters throughout the book. And what made you decide to go that route, and did you intentionally want to be plot and character driven in the book?
Yeah. Sorry, I've got to give her the book because that was a more flattering. No,
he's going to be buying.
I'm kidding.
He's going to be buying extra copies of the book to give away.
No, I write multi-perspective, and so for me, it's I think that I want to keep the pages moving, but I kind of want you to feel something, and I want you to nobody wants to read a book of cardboard characters, and the only reason to keep turning the pages for me when I read is I'm going to be invested in the people, or I want, even if they're awful, they're interesting, I try to make that balance, but you never know if you get it right. Jeffrey, how do you get the balance of plot and character?
Yeah, it's hard. I do my plot first, but you again, as I was saying earlier, the best plot in the world is useless if you don't care about the characters. And with the outline, again, I'll write little bios of the characters, but outline, it sounds mechanical, but the fact is, let's look at it like an airplane. Airplanes are built by schematics. They have to be. And that's the part that you depend on. It's the structure of the whole craft. But then you take a pilot who, she may get up in the morning, today I'm going to do barrel rolls. I'm going to do, fly close to the trees or something. And she's, that's the magic that she brings to it. And it's after the outline is done and then the writing process. I mean, I sit down, I close my eyes, I can touch type, and I either shut the lights out or close my eyes, and then I type, because the line in the outline may be nothing more than Lincoln Rhyme finds a clue that involves gunpowder. What on earth are I going to go with that? And that's where the creative part comes in, and I get into Lincoln's mind, and I start writing that. And that's kind of what you're talking about, where we know where the story's going to go, but that's the magic that brings the characters alive. And by the way, I will point out, it's very important, if any of you try this, that on the keyboard, the F and the J keys have those little bumps for a reason. And if you move over to one side and you write something, you're going to create a code that Dan Brown cannot discover. So, was there a question here? Did you have one? Yeah, please.
See, this flattery thing really worked, right?
Alex, you're going to have to buy. You're going to have to buy more books to give them away.
Yeah, but bribery works for you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
And I wanted to know, what was your inspiration for it?
Well, that was a few books ago. The question was, what was the inspiration for What Have We Done? It's. I think that one, I just wanted to write a story about kind of broken people as adults and delve into what brought them there. And I thought it was fun to go imagine what, we have kind of interesting people. We had a aging rock star, which, I can relate to. And I had just different characters who had a lot of problems. And I thought it'd be fun to go put them together as kids and see how that happened. And so it kind of jumps back and forth. That, funny enough, that's my least popular book. So I'm glad to hear you liked it. But yeah. And great reading
Yeah,
at your age too.
I have a question for Alex. What instrument and what was the name of your band?
I'm not going to tell you the name of the band because I do not want, I've been
there
so
any-
lucky to avoid the pictures. I live in fear on Facebook of an old friend posting. My clients can only accept so much. The fiction's that, but
Murder and mayhem are okay, but heavy metal is out.
Well, the pictures are something. It's two. And I played guitar.
Play guitar.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not very well. I thought it was good, but.
Great.
Should we do one or two more?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Please, back there.
I've watched all of Tracker. I love your books. They got me into reading after I'm still in books.
Oh, thank you.
And I was the book to the TV show. There's not that much. Only a few years difference. How did you? I know you're a producer on the show. How did you guys decide as a creative team what to update and what to keep? I know Dory's different. What you drive is different. Justin has a very different wardrobe too.
Yeah.
And it felt like I love this book. Like the whole series is great. The first one was incredibly creative, but it's like, how did you like the essence feels like it's translated so well, which I do not see in so many adaptations.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky. Ken is he's brilliant. 30-something. This is us. Justin too. Roxy, Ken's daughter, is also a producer on the show and has been working with him for a long time. And I think the most important thing, and again, I can't take credit for this. The most important thing, and Ben Winters was a showrunner and a developer of it, was to get the contemporary tone, the zeitgeist, what's going on in America right now, and there's the language. It's and you do this very well. I call it teen speak, which is a bit derogatory, but it isn't because it's a whole separate dialect, as we all know, and they were able to see that maybe Dorian should be moved out of what I had her in. And it was all done with quite premeditation. And one of the things I like about Ken is that he said, because we want to do what you do, Jeff, and that is to write for the audience. And there's a lot of authors who write for themselves, and it's very self-indulgent. A lot of filmmakers and TV producers and creators do that. And it's not about us. We again get paid to make up things, but that's a very special connection and partnership we have, and that's one of the things I think has made Tracker. It's still the #1 show on television. It is. And I go to. I was just working out a book deal with Bulgaria, and they said, one of the many languages countries I'm published in, and they said, well, I don't know if the Colter Shaw books they're not doing that well. We're not sure we want to pay you this much. And I said, well, I'll tell you something. Why don't you sell it as a tracker #4, and then put the subtitle in Bulgarian or English or whatever underneath? And they said, yeah, okay. And the sales went up. And so I still remember this is kind of pre-video phone, the phones with the videos in them days. But I was on tour it was after The Bone Collector had come out, but I was on tour in China. And I put on the TV because you can't sleep. It's 12 hours difference. What's on but The Bone Collector? And the best part was that they dubbed it. So I'm sorry. Here's Denzel Washington, Angelina Jolie, talking like Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee in the original Hong Kong films. But what was even better was that because the dialects are so different from Guangdong and Shanghai and so forth, that there were subtitles too. And so, I know I've made it now when my movies are being presented to audiences with Chinese dubbing and Chinese subtitles as well. So, but thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. I'm going to give you one of his books for the best. Let's do one or two more. So you call on somebody you want else. Go ahead.
Hi, this is for Mr. Deaver. How did you come up with the inspiration of how you wrote the October list?
Oh, no. The October List, which is one of my absolute favorite books, is my thriller. If you're not familiar with it, it's a thriller that goes backwards. It opens with chapter 33, and you turn a few pages, then we're chapter 32, going back in time, 2 hours earlier, 3 hours earlier, and so forth. Takes place over a weekend, begins Sunday night, and goes down to, I think it's maybe Thursday night, the prior Thursday night. And the inspiration for that was my concept that I wanted to write a book that had a surprise beginning, because all of my books have surprise endings. I wanted a surprise beginning. So you get to chapter 3, and then you realize that everything you've read up to that point is turned on its head, and the characters you think are this are actually somebody else. And then you get to chapter 2, which turns chapter 3 on its head, and chapter 1, where everything is revealed. It's all completely different. It was quite a challenge to write. Who inspired me to do that? Stephen Sondheim wrote a play called Merrily We Roll Along. That went backwards in time. And, of course, the main inspiration was a Seinfeld episode that goes backwards, if you're familiar with that one, with the character Pinter. And Harold Pinter, the playwright, also wrote a play that went backwards. It was great fun to do. It has original photographs of mine as clues to put in, and it was a lot of fun. The Daily Standard in England said this is a work of genius, and one which he must never ever do again. But thank you. I enjoyed it. Some people hate it, and understandably. I knew I was going to take flack for it. It was my second book that year, because I always talk about giving readers things they like. They had a Lincoln Rhyme book that year, but this was also a giveaway. It wasn't a giveaway. It was much less expensive. It was a novella. It was about 65,000 words. So, but I'm glad you. Well, you haven't actually said you liked it, but I hope you did. Thank you. Thank you. I tried. Thank you so much for that.
Speaking of Lincoln Rhyme, can you tell us a little bit about the upcoming Lincoln Rhyme? And should we stop asking about Catherine Dance at this point?
Sure. Lincoln Rhyme will be out next year. A year from now, I'll be back here for that. Lincoln Rhyme and Coulter Shaw are primarily the characters I'm doing. Catherine Dance was my character from Northern California, kind of a theme we have going here. She's a kinesics expert, a body language expert working for the California Bureau of Investigation, which no longer exists, but because we make stuff up, that would not be a problem. The problem is that aside from the project I'm working on with Isabella, I don't co-write. And the book Isabella and I wrote is 50-50. This is not like James Patterson getting an idea and giving it to somebody. This is, completely mutual effort. And I can't do anything but that. And I don't have time to write a Catherine Dance book. They were not that popular, unfortunately. There's talk about a streaming Catherine Dance show. If that's the case, I'll adjust my time and somehow get a novel out, but that may be a little bit of time. So many hours in the day, right? And I'm not defending the justice system of America on top of everything.
Alex, what are you working on now?
I'm just finishing up my book that will come out next year, just trying to get through the day. honestly.
You got your hands full in Washington, don't you?
Yeah, it's a busy time.
Anybody else? All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up and have you sign some books for us.
Sure. Well, thank you as always, Patrick and Barbara and everybody. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sure, we'll take applause. Why not?
Thanks so much. We also have some birthday cake up there. We're not going to sing for everybody on camera, I don't think. Maybe after we shut down the video, we can sing.
Or champagne?
I'll do champagne. Yeah, sure.
champagne and cake. So
Sure.
if you wouldn't mind, it always takes a minute or two. If you wouldn't mind folding up your chairs and putting them against that wall.
But don't leave. He's not asking you to
Don't
leave. Just
leave.
for the record.
And
so.
then line up by signing number.
And where right here? Would you like us, Patrick? Probably the lower table, if that's okay. Yeah.
Alex, Jeff.